Hello, this is Chit Chat with Chauna,
And Chakesha.
and I'm Chauna.
And I'm Chakesha.
Okay, yes, we'd like to welcome you today to our show where we will make sure that everyone understands that this is a brief conversation to talk about the legislation and make it easy to understand. As many of you know, here in the state of Louisiana, the legislative session for 2026 began on Monday, and it's already selling and have lots of topics. Chakesha?
So I agree. So the goal is just to have a conversation around legislation so that we can all be aware of what's going through at the state capitol, what's happening at the state capitol, because it does impact us. So we want to make sure we're having conversations around it and raise awareness where necessary so that we can make our voices known to our legislators to make sure that they are passing legislation that serves us and our communities and our interests, and that we are positioned to either speak up or come out and support the legislation that we agree with versus the legislation that we may not agree with. But in order to make any change, it has to start with awareness. It has to start with conversations. And that's the goal of the show, is to create a space for those conversations and to fold into that process so that we can see real change.
So this will not come as a surprise, but the bill that Chakesha has really highlighted, and one that has actually gone through committee last week, is SB 49, BESE election changes. You want us to tell us a little about that?
Well, yeah, I have talked a lot about it, and just to give some clarity around it. So, SB 49 deals with the election changes for the BESE race. So, BESE is the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. That board governs all of the public education and private education for the state of Louisiana. So, when in 2024,
Jeff
when
Landry's.
Jeff Landry was elected, that's when major changes happened. And during that year, that's when
A
every
rush.
change that they ever dreamed of, that they wanted to happen and put into law, they pretty much got it that year, including the unlawful reconstitution,
Yes.
but it including other bills such as the change in how we do elections. One of the bills that they changed that created change was the federal races, of going from an open, like a jungle election where everybody who wants to be in the ring gets in the ring, and it's changed to a closed primary where you have to, each party votes who they want their candidate to move forward. So in Louisiana, we've always done like a jungle type election where everybody who wants to run gets in the ring and the best man wins. So they started the bill with all of the seats, the state offices like governor, the legislators, as well as the federal offices. But when it went through amendments, they removed all of the state offices like the governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of
Treasurer,
state, treasurer, all of
state
those.
rep,
But they left the
senator.
federal offices, U.S. Senate, House of Representatives, the Supreme Court, Public Service Commission, and BESE. Now, I'm not sure if they meant to leave BESE in there, but BESE is on a different election cycle than the other offices. They're on the election cycle is all of the state offices that they remove out of there. So now they're saying that they're trying to put this bill through to save the state money. Now,
May I clarify two things? So if you notice, Chakesha spoke of a jungle election and a primary election, and she mentioned closed election. I'm sorry, closed election and open election. And so this is my first time hearing of the term jungle election. But basically, a jungle election is like an open election, is what we have been accustomed to. And that is whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you can have an open election where you can vote Republican or you can report, you can vote Democrat. With the closed election, which is coming up for the first time for the congressional race this fall, all Republicans can only vote for Republicans. All Democrats can only vote for a Democrat candidate. And if there are a non-party who will have that choice, or if there is a non-party, which I don't believe there is, for the congressional race, they can vote. They can have the non-party and possibly be chosen with both
So that's my understanding for the primary
the
election. So they
primary
call it
election.
correct. So what these bills do, and again, it's going for SB 49 is going for Senate vote tomorrow.
Oh wow!
So it's very urgent that we speak up to our senators about this.
And is that the House bill? It's already cleared out.
So the House bill hasn't gone to committee yet.
Okay, gotcha.
But the Senate bill has went 2 days after the session opened.
Wednesday. Yeah.
So and it's scheduled for the Senate floor on tomorrow. So what it does is remove BESE from party primary elections, which means they won't have that primary first election based on, well, the party elects who they want to go into the ring. Mm-hmm. So in other states, so I do want to clarify, because I know I put out there about it will by default be a nonpartisan race. Mm-hmm. If they remove that label of party primary election, and in some states, nonpartisan races remove the party label of Democrat, Republican, but in Louisiana, that term can have a different meaning, which means we want it to be a race for the jungle election, which means everybody going to the ring, regardless of what party. So the bigger question is, why do it for the federal election, but remove it for the state election? So in 2024, all of the offices were included, where they were going to start doing that for all of the offices. But when it went through the House and Senate floor, at some point, a lot of amendments took place, and they removed their offices out of it. So all of the governor, Secretary of State, the state treasurer, culture commissioner, the Senate, House of Representatives, and a couple of more, they removed all of them out of the party primary and put them back into the way we are accustomed to. Those races are scheduled for 2027 next year. However, our federal races like Congress, mm-hmm. U.S. House of Representatives, U.S. Senate, they are scheduled for 2026, mm-hmm. and they will do the closed primary. So
this November.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So an article I shared earlier, where Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser shared that that was done to potentially try to block Bill Cassidy from getting African American support when they prefer another candidate now. Mm-hmm. And Governor Landry has not been shy about saying that he endorsed Letlow, as well as Donald Trump endorsed Julia Letlow. However, Senator Cassidy has done so much for the community. They know he will be a tough candidate to beat. Right. So the way to get around that is change the rules for the election, where supporters that he may have that are not Republican won't be able to vote in the primary election. And that way, that candidate will advance forward, where they don't have to worry about the outside supporters for Bill Cassidy, mm-hmm. Voting for him and advancing him forward.
And if we can give a little history on David Cassidy, not that we were telling you who to vote for or anything, Bill Cassidy. We know that Bill Cassidy and both his wife, even before they had political careers, they were so much involved with the African American and Democratic community. We know that basically Senator Cassidy worked at Earl K. Long, and so he was someone that was a face and in a profession where lots of people in the community, both blacks and whites, knew of the Cassidys. And then his wife was one of the forerunners that dealt with a lot of women as it relates to breast cancer. I had friends during that time, I'll say 20, 30 years ago, and Dr. Cassidy, Laura Cassidy was their physician. So from a historic point, even before they were, he was in the political arena, people knew both he and his wife for being very equitable as it relates to ensuring that there was medical care, whether you were black, white, Republican, rich, poor, as well as having children that went to McKinley, all of those things. So again, as you indicate, that makes it hard. So when someone goes into the booth and there's the preemptance that black and Democrats would be voting for Cassidy under these circumstances. Removing that access
Yeah, and it's
is what
interesting
it's
you
about.
share that because I actually did not know that as far as that perspective, and I want to share with what my remembrance and perspective of the Cassidys are, because again, I came into the the voting ring realm and just his work experience at a later time.
Hmm.
So early in my career, when I was working for LSU hospitals, I was a state auditor for the state hospitals. He was one of the lead chief physicians or director who would teach the residents at the hospital at Earl K. Long. So very smart, very intelligent, and his name would just be mentioned a lot in that space. He had a lot of influence just because of the work he had done during that time. So that was my first introduction to him during that avenue. As far as his wife, my first introduction to her was when I launched my charter school back in 2014 or 2013 when we first applied. They applied at the same time during the same year for
Dyslexia.
their charter school. And that's when I learned more about their story. That's when I learned that he and his wife were both of them are physicians,
Hmm.
and that and she's a surgeon, so not
Yes.
just any type of
Right.
doctor. She does surgery with, like you said, in specialty in breast cancer
Hmm.
research, and their own personal children. So what motivated or inspired them to launch their school, their personal children had exceptionalities of dyslexia. So
Hmm.
because they're both medical doctors, of course they had the resources and funds
Hmm.
to buy the best of the best and get the best research-based instructional tools and materials that are out there that help their children advance even with an exceptionality of dyslexia. So they wanted to gift other children that were less fortunate with and had the dyslexia exceptionality with the gift of having those research-based tools and instruction to be so that they can have an equitable opportunity at a high quality education. And that was the birth of what's known today as Louisiana Key Academy.
Hmm.
So they are another locally based school, and their mission and vision has been around that from their own personal experience to help children with dyslexia so that they can learn and they can advance. So it's more of them giving back. So
Hmm.
they're, as you know, they're very resourced, very well off, but their
Hmm.
service and public service to
Hmm.
me extends beyond of just wanting a political position, which to me speaks to why
Character.
when it comes to, yes, character and standing up for what's right. So when they had the insurrection at the US Capitol,
Hmm.
just his character say, I don't agree with that, I don't align that with that, and it's not okay.
Yeah. So from then on,
Mhm.
he's had a target,
On his
essentially.
back,
Yeah.
right. And there's no reason for him to fall in line because he has done so much and
Hmm.
already blessed, and that's not why he's there. So but now the agendas are a little different, and it seems like we're putting laws in place to specifically target
Target.
one individual.
So I wanted to just kind of talk about what this, if this would pass, it would be is that there are no longer party labels to
So
appear on the ballot. Is that correct?
well, no, what I was saying that it will default to what's called a nonpartisan
Right.
election, but in some states that means no party labels.
But
Not,
what does that mean in
it
Louisiana?
means go back to the jungle election where everybody goes in the hat for those state offices
So
for
that if
2027.
so, you might have to do it. So if this bill is approved, then it would go back to like the state. That's what, right? It'll go back to the way the state is,
Okay.
where
Yeah.
yeah.
So if this bill moves forward,
Hmm.
Bessie will be added to the list of the rest of the state offices as far as okay, they don't have to have closed primary
Hmm.
party elections. They just go everybody in the hat.
Okay.
So the
So
concern
what
is
would be the call?
the concern with that is when we start um, putting bills through for this specific reason, then going asking for this exception, it sets the precedent that we are using the lawmaking process to accomplish specific motives and not
Absolutely.
in the best interest of the community and the people it impact.
Absolutely.
And if they change this with this exception, it sets a precedent of what the lawmaking system in Louisiana can will allow. So, in my opinion, I think our senators should either undo what they did in 2024 by making federal races closed primary, but not the other races, or just make them all closed primary races where it's fair across the board.
All righty. So, because usually after these conversations, that's the question: how can we help? So, I think if this is important to you for SB 49, let your senator know that you'd prefer them to either to vote no for this bill, and or they should vote that all the bills are closed.
Exactly. And just keep in mind, our Board of Elementary, Secondary, and Education is responsible for overseeing all of the education policies for all of the children and students in public education and private education across the state. The board is already, in my opinion, disproportionate as far as the makeup.
Hmm. Only
There,
two Democrats.
yeah, so there are 11 members on the BESE board.
Hmm.
Three of them are appointed by the governor.
Right.
The other eight are
Voted by
elected.
district,
Yeah,
yes.
so we, the constituents, vote for our BESE representative depending on what district you live in. But the districts are so large. Some of
Hmm.
them span across multiple parishes to where you can't effectively run a campaign for BESE unless you have the backing of a lot of money, like millions of
Yeah.
dollars at this point.
So,
So
and a lot of those areas are rural. So you're saying that with let's say that this is a closed election, and or I mean even open, if you're a candidate for Bessie and you cannot do radio, television, and lots of mailers, then you're not going to be able to win because of the massiveness
mhm,
of the districts.
mhm.
And so, on top of that, if you're going into the box and you can only vote for Republicans or you can only vote for Democrats, then there's already an imbalance because chances are that Republican candidate will definitely outspend the Democratic candidate because across the board, it's very hard for a Democrat to win a statewide race. And though this isn't statewide, it's on that level of importance because we are basically have the lives of 85, 90% of Black and Brown children throughout the entire state at this
So
at their mercy.
over half of the students in public education in Louisiana are minority Black or Brown children, and when you get into your more suburban cities like Baton Rouge,
Hmm.
Shreveport, New Orleans, that number goes upward of 85%. So, however, when you look at the makeup of the BESE board,
Hmm.
of the 8 elected seats, only 2 of them
Right.
are African American. That represents Democratic, most mainly Democratic districts, and the other 6 are Republican because it represents the other parts of the state, which are mostly rural
And three
areas.
Republican by the
So if
appointed
we
by
have
the
a Republican governor, those 3 seats are most likely going to be Republican.
right.
So if they were to remove party labels for
Hmm.
BESE on this upcoming election, it will be a real problem where we can risk losing the 2 seats we have that are right now being held by African Americans or Democratic seats, and which means even less representation on the board that oversees the public education of the state, even though the student population
Does not
over
reflect that.
half are Black and Brown children. So it's so important that we maintain representation and that we have a fair election process when it comes from BESE. So anything that's proposing any change with BESE elections or with BESE in general, we need to pay very close attention to it. For the last 3 years, um, the BESE board has been, there have been laws been passed that have either hurt children or find some type of way to control or empower BESE to do things that are won't tip that wouldn't be typically done. So, for example, in 2024, That's when the Reconstitution Bill passed to
Right.
reconstitute a private nonprofit board. In the next year,
The
which
only
was
place in Louisiana, in
only
the
and
country,
the
I'm
only place
sorry,
in the
in the
country that has
country.
happened.
Yeah.
In 2025,
Hmm.
which was last year, they passed the bill, where they attempted to pass the bill
Take property.
to, yes, to where BESE can empower themselves to give out millions of dollars in facility loans,
Hmm.
with no cap on it. They set their own interest rate, set their own terms,
They become a
and
bank, a financial institution.
become a financial institution with no staff to do that, no prior. So
No
if we
regulation.
had to raise awareness for the legislators to start asking questions like, wait a minute, no. And then what they end up doing was putting the responsibility on the Department of Administration instead of BESE. But if we wouldn't have said anything, again, we would have had this situation with BESE. And then this year, now we see this bill coming through
Hmm.
with BESE. None of these bills impact kids positively. None of these bills advance educational policies or initiatives. So that has been the trend under the current administration when it comes to bills regarding BESE, which is why we have to make sure that we're asking questions to make sure that none of these bills are rubber stamped without asking the right questions before advancing them forward.
So if you, we're going to close out on this, but definitely it sounds
Mhm.
like we want to remind you that SB 49 will be going
Oh
on the
yeah.
Senate floor for a vote tomorrow, which is a Monday. And this is why we ask you again, we are discussing the information. We want you to be engaged, but you still need to do your homework, look at the pros and cons, and actually reach out to your senator for questions, whether they need to delay the vote, answer your question, hold meetings, whatever, so that you can make sure that you're positively represented.
Awesome. Yes. So, but next we're going to move on to, we've identified a lot of trends where we've seen the same bill and the same policy moving through both chambers of the legislature. So we have several bills that are the same policy, but different authors
Mhm.
putting them through in different chambers.
Right. I wanted to kind of tell people that there's a way to find out who your legislator and is both for the House and for the Senate. And I'm sorry, we didn't. I mean, I could write it on a sheet of paper and hold it up to the screen. We're not all that fancy, but it is,
You go ahead
um,
and just find out.
you know, HTTPS. Okay. She's making me embarrassed, so I'm just gonna go ahead and write it, and I'm gonna hold it up while she's talking. All right, let's move on to HB. Don't y'all laughing at us? HB 204 by Representative McMahon, and it targets the East Baton Rouge Council on Aging, Cats, and BREC. And this particular bill would require just these three entities to submit monthly financial reporting and bank statements to the legislative auditor. Now I know you want to go into this, but I really there was a time that no matter when there was a state agency, you basically could go to them and pretty much be assured that they're going to do right, that they're going to be fair, that they're going to be transparent. I have not found that to be the case for the legislative auditors at this point. I think, in more than one instance, the legislative auditors have become uh, weaponized bureaucracy as well as law enforcement.
Yeah, yeah,
And, during all my days of what I knew an auditor to be in the area of government, it was to ensure that proper policies and procedures were enforced, and then give dialogue to the body as to how to strengthen those protocols or give reason as to why they operated in that manner. It was a learning tool. It was a tool of
Mm-hmm.
accuracy, accountability, but it was also a shared responsibility between the agency and the legislative auditor. But it's it's no longer that. And so for me, when I see a bill that is targeting and being on the council for 12 years, knowing that these exact agencies were always the ones that were brought before the Metro Council, having to shed blood to prove a point. And these are what you call quasi-state agencies, which mean though they are agencies that were constituted by the legislation, they are local separate entities. They operate locally with a local body. And so all of this deal where how do you choose three agencies when there are hundreds of quasi agencies? You're choosing three that, first of all, the East Baton Rouge Council on Aging, which has done a phenomenal job. And what we know is that, I went to a meeting with the Council on Aging, and they kept stressing clean audits, clean audits, clean audits. Chakesha, you had clean audits.
Yeah.
And
So
so that alone does not clear it. And I'm going to let you get into it. When you talk about cats, and this is the other thing, as long as the Council on Aging was poor and a stepchild, nobody worried about them. As soon as that tax passed, all hell broke out.
mhm.
And then it's being led by a Black woman, basically, and almost other than a few Black board members who stepped up. It wasn't like we went out and said we want an all Black board. That's who stepped up because they cared enough for the that senior population.
Mhm.
And suddenly they've been fighting for every straw. And
Mhm.
now to overburden them with this legislation, for me, gives them a monthly way to break them down, to nitpick every month.
Yeah, to nitpick.
Nitpick.
Yeah, and I would say again, this is another example of two of, in this case, similar bills. They're not the exact same that are moving through each chamber at the same time. So to make sure that if one don't make it, hopefully the other one will make it. So I know that the leadership for the Council on Aging spoke out very candidly of, that they want to oppose the bill 204 by McMakin, which requires only the East Baton Rouge Parish Council on Aging
That's the
to,
really, really crazy
yeah,
part.
to report monthly bank statements and monthly financials in addition to BREC and CATS. My argument is, why aren't the other um, entities included that are have a similar setup as them? So however, the other bill, which we call a companion bill,
Mm-hmm.
that's by Senator Barrow, is asking for all of the council on agents throughout the state to report monthly financial statements and bank statements. Which again, why just that organization,
Right.
not all, like mosquito abatement, airport boards, all of those others?
So,
So,
so you're that. It go. I'm gonna go back to Thrive.
mhm.
We are so used, and when I say we, I talk about Black leadership because I stand for Black. I stand for Black power, if you will. Not that I don't stand for white power. I'm just saying I don't know nothing to be but Black. But we are always chasing the tail behind the dog. Is that right? So, and it's two things. So when we dealt with Thrive, and people they tried to they put mosquito abatement, council on aging, and the library. You give us this, or you're going to be threatened. And they use fear to try to manipulate the voters and manipulate the agencies into giving up to get. Again, where we, the citizens, voted for them to have the funding. Now, I don't think that you should compromise if you right. And so to me, when the Council on Aging was like, okay, we'll give away however many millions, to me, that's like, well, y'all must don't need it. That's how I look at it. And I'm like, you should be fighting for all that you have. And then when you get to where we are now with the election, which is the way it should have been in the first place, let the chips fall where they may. That's what you brag about what you're doing, and you do not be fearful, and you don't give in when it's not right. Yeah. Bottom line. So cats, same thing. Cats, until when cats did not have a dedicated tax, nobody was worried about those raggedy buses. Nobody was worried that people had to walk miles because they were mostly blacks. But they did not consider one of the things that the hospitals were for cats because they had employees riding the bus. If my employees can't get the bus, I can't provide medical care. And it was agencies like that that were saying, my employees can't get to work. We got to get this bus situation together. And so now, again, cats, black leadership, black head leadership. Then they, want to act like everybody is a criminal. All of those things are timed in the media to break down our trust system and throw our hands up. Brett was one of the most progressive, fair entities we've had. We've gone from Brett being majority black, from being led by a black person, a black professional, where persons across the parish got equitable, good, good recreational incentives to a place where nobody cares really. It's there. It's nothing to be proud of. Right. So when I look at this, and we're gonna get back to the beer. I had to throw my council knowledge into it because I experienced those things. But I do want to say, submitting monthly financial statements. If I would, can you have two bills in the house? If I would have got another person in the house to say, if we're going to do this for these, we're going to do this for all quasi. Why? Yeah. What is there something legal?
Well, they can request amendments. Well, that's why we encourage everybody to contact the legislators, because they can propose amendments. They can propose amendments in committee. And even I guess once they get to the floor versus doing a whole nother bill. So, but if they just rubber stamp and vote for bills, like, okay, you vote for my bill, I'm gonna vote for your bill, then
which is what they do.
In a lot of cases, you don't get the change and impact that truly needs to happen. So unless you call down there and say, hey, you need to oppose this bill for these reasons, or hey, you need to support this bill for these reasons, or even suggest some amendments that they can put in place. I mean, take the friction out, help them out, say, hey, I suggest these amendments be put into the bill. Can you advocate for these amendments so that when the bill is presented, your representative have something to work with to bring changes to that bill, to make it good for everybody, or to delay the bill until it is appropriate, or kill the bill if a lot of their overwhelming number of their constituents don't want to see that happen, because it will be a disservice to their communities. So they are not going to move if they don't hear from you to know that you even have a problem with it in the first place. So that we're going to continue tracking that bill as well, both of those bills, and as we report each week, to let you know how they move through the Senate or the House, to see if they get enough votes, or if sent back for more amendments, or if they pass the different levels that's needed to go to the governor's vote.
So I have a question. I made
I
my
mean, the
sign
governor's
too.
signature. I'm sorry.
So I want to go back. I don't want to move, and we may not get to this, a lot of the other, because
Yeah.
this is really about principle to me.
Hmm.
So when we look at House Bill 204, I think a lot of times when we meet, people want to say, what can we do? I can't tell you what to do, but I could tell you what I would, if somebody like specifically said me, as I would call every one of my state representatives or email them or text them and say, I would like you to request to amend House Bill 204 to include all quasi agencies.
Hmm.
If you can actually do a Google and say, give me a list, or Chat GTP, give me a list of all quasi agencies in the state of Louisiana. That will give you the number. Then you say what's good for the goose. Don't say my word, just say, unless you're gonna say, according to Chauna Banks, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So how is it that you pick on these three agencies and you have whatever that number is, and you tell your state representative that either they go for these amendments or let it be no?
Hmm.
That's how you play, that's how you take authority.
Hmm.
That's how you don't operate in fear. That's when you got right on your side. It's when you start compromising that you lose everything.
I agree.
So if you don't know, y'all don't laugh at me. Is this going to come out backwards?
We'll get the link. We're gonna put
We're
the
going to
link
send a link.
above or below this video.
This is how we did it in the old days. We wrote it on a sheet of paper. But anyway, so, and I want to go back to SB 247 under Senator Barrow. Again, this doesn't make sense to me.
Hmm.
Basically, SB 47 reinforces
247.
204.
Right.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to say the consequence will be the same. So I understand that the leadership wanted to vehemently oppose 204, but 247 was not even acknowledged, but the consequence will be the same. So if you're
Yes.
okay with the consequence, why oppose one and not the other? So I
Right.
was confused by
And
that.
so, and it's really confusing because, I know the longevity of the relationship that Senator Barrow has with the Council on Aging. Her daughter works there. She was there when they were poor. You hear about that love story over and over again. However, this does not make sense. This does not help the Council on Aging. This is, I'm in terms, what this says is like if you're a married woman, you're married to a man and he wants to have an affair. All right. So here in HB 204, he says, I could have an affair on my wife. Then we go on the Senate side and say he can have an affair, but he needs to have an affair in every city. I know it's crazy. I know that's the best I could do. So what you're saying is it's not wrong to overburden the Council on Aging, since she didn't say all bus systems and all recreation centers around the state. She's saying it's not wrong to overburden the EBR Council on Aging to send these records to the legislative auditor, who will have 30 days to go through and write down notes saying, okay, they did this wrong for January, they did this wrong in February, they did this wrong for January, February, and March.
To build a case.
To build a case. And then in January of the next year, everybody indicted. All the money, somebody did this contract was wrong, this person can do this, da da da. And then we back with an AG indictment. That's the mentality. That is what we're dealing with, people. This is not an innocent. My pastor talked about
innocent
today.
bill.
He said sin is not harmless. He said sin is not harmless. It is destructive. And that's what 204 is, destructive. It is to put a heavy burden on these three. So in 12 months, all of you all would be standing before a grand jury. Or they would put so much heat on you and your board, they're going to dismiss. I told Tasha at Thrive, they want to get rid of you. I told her.
And
They get mad at me. They talked about me on Facebook. They told their senior. I
yeah.
tell you what I know.
And because the 204 does appear to be malicious. However, 247,
South, yeah.
I don't think the intent was malicious.
No.
However, when you clearly see malicious intent out there via 204,
Right.
is almost like requiring them to do it as well as the rest of the state. Yeah, the rest of the state is doing it, but they only looking for one specific council.
Right.
So it's like it's a setup.
It's a setup
to still give them their target.
And right. So nobody, I don't know the money of everything, but if let's say if 204 would fail, HB 204 fails, right, in the House, and that is targeting Council on Aging, Cats, and Brick. And SB 247 passes.
Which is the whole state.
Which is the whole state
Council
for
on
Council on
Aging.
Aging. The legislative order, if they only want EBR, they're going to go after EBR.
They're going to just go and get that one.
They're just going to go get that.
Close their eyes to the rest
So
of
what
them,
you do is you shut it all down because it's ill-gotten gain. It's ill-gotten gain.
Mm-hmm.
It's still targeting you. So I'm going to go back to, if I was going to call either one of my representative or my senator, which I'm not, because if you didn't get a call, I'm not going to get a call back. I would say vote no for HB 204 or do all quasi-agencies across the state of Louisiana. That's the first thing. That'll work the doggone out of them. So, Then for 247, I would have a bill saying absolutely doing all or none. Don't even break it down. You setting yourself up for internal failure. And then you're gonna be mad at Senator Mackin, and then you're gonna be praising Senator Barrow, but Senator Barrow is the one that put the hammer on the nail. I think she has a meeting coming up too.
Oh, yeah. So Senator Barrow's meeting, I did share that information, and then the meeting was canceled due to inclement weather. So I would also like to share the update. That meeting has been rescheduled to next Wednesday, the 18th, and it will be held at the Baker Municipal Center instead of the library. So much more spacious, more rooms, same time, but Wednesday, Baker Municipal Center for her meeting. I think that would be a great opportunity to ask for more details of the bills and the reasoning behind those bills, of why just the Council of Aging was picked out for this level of compliance and not the other quasi public entities. And also about the DCFS bill regarding the abolishment of the Department of Family and Child Services. So I know that sparked a lot of interest of a lot of people.
Do we have time to talk about that a little before we leave out?
So not today, due to timing.
Okay, we need these committees, because you told me that everything goes to a committee. Does any of this go to a committee before?
So when it gets closer to committee, that's when we will prioritize the bills. Like if we know it's coming up for a vote, and if there are any other bills that you guys want us to talk about, want us to research further, let us know. Send us an email. Or
I'll give you my email, but I'm going to tell you what you got to put in the subject area. And I can't. At first I thought about us having a chit chat at I can't do another email. Chitchat at Gmail, Chauna. So my email is IamChaunaBanks@gmail. But in the subject, put chit chat so I can know it's something about that. If you have if you know something is coming up in committee, you want to, let's just talk it out. And after we finish this, there's going to be comments. So this discussion continues. So
Yes.
it doesn't end with us. It may have began with us, but it doesn't end with us.
And we do plan to talk about the abolishment bill, but we want to give that bill the time it deserves.
Yeah.
But because that meeting is coming up, we do want to encourage you to attend to ask questions to understand, because there are a lot of questions circulating around that bill. For example, why wasn't well, one, is there a transition plan, and is it written out where the public can review it and see it? Because if we're taking the same staff and moving them to the other agencies, is
I
that,
don't even want it to get to that. So that's
yeah,
not, yeah,
yeah, is it going to be real change or just understanding?
absolutely not.
Right. So we want to be efficient and effective in everything that we do. And Shauna has another announcement.
Okay. So you all didn't like my handwritten, so I have another one. Politics is very important, and we do have power. If we don't lead with anything else, we want you to know that the power is in the people. But the other side of it is economic development, and many of the decisions made in politics because we don't have economic power. So something that I've seen across the country, and that is huge Black business expos and convention. So the Black Business Insiders will be August 28th, 29th, and 30th. It is at the River Center. This is not a pop up, it is not a festival. It is a highly curated event. The expo is free, the convention is not. It is for businesses to business to the consumer as well as business to business. So you will learn everything. There are panel discussion, live entertainment, night events. Go to www.blackbusinessinsiders.com. We have a meeting in Baker on March 28th at Rosebud Healthcare and Training, 3207 Levy Lane in Baker. Come out at 9:30 to find out or just be curious. Thank you, Chakesha.
You are welcome. And of course, we want to always end on a positive note.
Yes.
And what we want to do each time we have one of these shows is spotlight a legislator, especially during our legislative season. So, just as well, just like your bills that are questionable or controversial or just uncomfortable.
They could email us that too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Let us
Recommend.
know. We want to talk about those bills, but we also want to highlight the good bills and the positive bills that clearly uplift our communities, that are clearly is going to change things
Like
around
increase minimum wages.
for the good. Yes, that's one. Increase minimum wages. We are tracking out and to see if that passed. But today we picked out the spotlight of a legislator by the name of Representative Alonzo Knox. So Representative Knox represents parts of the Orleans Parish area, and his bill, one of the bills he authored, is HB 800, so House Bill 800. And what that bill does, it addresses pricing practices between grocery suppliers and retailers. So this bill would require grocery suppliers to offer similar pricing terms to the smaller grocery stores that they offer to the larger chains. So if they're buying in the same quantity and the same product, so that way the smaller grocers have a competitive advantage of they don't have to mark their prices up super high
like the corner stores.
Exactly. So now this will force those suppliers to sell to them at the same price, which is going to make y'all groceries cheaper when you purchase from smaller grocers, and it will help keep independent grocers in business. So spotlight to Representative Knox.
And it is also Representative Ed Laverdane.
Yes, Ed Laverdane is the co-author for that bill.
Congratulations
and he's also
to both of you,
in the Orleans Parish. Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
So that's all we have for this week. Please join us next week and share with us what you would like for us to cover, or if you have any feedback on what we have covered. And remember to get involved, contact your legislators. We'll put the link above and below so you can find out who your legislators are if you don't know who they are already. And we will see you on next week. Bye.